Fine. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is your boy CIZY back at it again with another episode of the Voices of Value podcast. Listen, I tell you guys every single week, I'm coming back with another fire guest. And when you listen to this episode, today it's actually Saturday, but the day you're listening to it will be a Friday. So when you listen to this episode on Friday morning, afternoon, or evening, just know that we over here getting ready to start a dope conversation with the individual that I look up to in regards to discipline, commitment, showing up when he says he's going to show up, doing hard shit even when you don't want to. Like, that's pretty much what this conversation is going to be about today, and kind of diving into the mindset our guest today was able to create and develop and really, carve into his life and make it a real part of him. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Hunter Vaughn, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people, my brother.
What's up, guys? Yeah, my name's Hunter Vaughn. Grown up in Kansas City, specifically Independence, Missouri. Um, I've lived here my whole life, with the exception of maybe a couple of years. I was in the Marine Corps. Moved to Sacramento for a bit, but decided to come back. And I got a little girl, a stepdaughter, and pretty much just raised them with my girl and spend time with them when I can.
Hell yeah, man. I love it. Family man, fighter, veteran. Look, we got so many things to touch on. So let's start with childhood, man. Hunter, when you were, a young bull, the first memory I have about you is boxing. I remember everyone in school talking about, yo, yeah, that Hunter kid, because you're a grade older than me. So that Hunter kid, yeah, he got hands, kids are like, yeah, he got hands. He can throw hands, man. Hey, that white boy got hands. I promise you. I promise you, he got hands. Be careful with that, man. Don't be playing with him, blah, blah, blah. And so that's like the first memory I have is like when I started hearing Hunter's name around school. It's like just in the little crew of kids I was hanging out with, and they'd be like, hey, don't play with that boy. That white boy got hands, blah, blah, blah. And so I used to hear that all the time. And, hear about golden gloves, this, hear about, training boxing that, his pops and helping him out with fighting. So let's double back to like childhood, man. Talk about your upbringing. When you think about some positive memories from your childhood, what are some things that come to light?
So I'll be honest, growing up for me was well, I guess there's a stereotype that comes with like fighters or boxers and it's that usually they're pretty ghetto, and I don't mean that like in the sense that everybody's raised in the projects and becomes a fighter, but it's just I don't know what it is, but it just makes for a better fighter. And so my own story, um, shout out to my mom and dad who are doing great now. But growing up, I had a really rough life. My parents were on drugs, um, pretty heavily, like very heavily. I was put in foster care at one point. Got back to my parents. They kept going. My stepdad was real abusive, and I really grew up around a lot of violence. And as a kid, that didn't make me very violent. Like, I'm not an aggressive person even now. Like, I don't like to hurt people. I don't want to hurt people. Uh, so like it just kind of put it in my mind being raised around in a violent. I can't even explain, man. Like just being raised in that type of environment. I read somewhere uh that when your body or your mind is always put into fight or flight mode uh, at a young age, as an adult, you don't ever really get out of that stage. So some people are either put all the way in flight mode where they avoid relationships and stuff like that with people, or people are put in fight mode, where they tend to be very aggressive, uh, more violent people, you know? And so I think at like a very adolescent age, maybe 11, 12, I really started to figure it out. Not really figure it out, but it started to come. And, I played football, basketball, baseball, and I wrestled also when I was real little. Um, but I wasn't very aggressive. I was naturally athletic and good at sports, but like I really hadn't figured it out. But like I don't know. That was when UFC started really getting big and boxing and all that. And so I really started to kind of get an interest in fighting. Um, and I would watch movies that were all about the warrior, the hero, you know, soldiers, any type of military or fighting, and that really resonated with me. I don't know. I just always really was drawn to that.
And I want to
And
I want to jump into that a little bit because I think, one thing that I really admire about you, like I mentioned it before and during the intro, is your ability to lock in and do things that are hard. So when you were young, when you were, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like how I guess how prevalent were, like, I don't know, chores, like dad being like, get your ass outside and go mow the lawn, or go rake the leaves, or go do this hard thing, or like how early in your life do you remember being told to go run, go exercise? Like when do you remember like integrating like discipline and hard shit into your life? Was it at an early age, or did that come later in life? Because I've always admired that about you, so I definitely want to dive into that.
okay, well, I guess so. From the time I started playing sports, I wasn't really good at any of them, but I didn't like the feeling, whether it was baseball, football, basketball, any of those. I guess once my dad got out of prison, um, he kind of took the reins over with the sports and stuff, and I didn't like, and I'm sure he didn't like, because I've seen him whenever I've lost a fight. He doesn't like me not being the best player, or at least having some type of something to offer my team or myself in a sports situation. So basketball, he bought me a basketball goal, and you know, like kind of that mini Kobe attitude. He was like, "You need to sit out there after you do your homework. You need to sit out there and hit 100 free throws tonight. You need to hit 100 layups." And I still sucked at basketball. I got a lot better, but it's just that mentality that he put in me. Baseball, he bought me this little hurricane batting thing and used to take me to the batting cages. And I went from the worst baseball player on my team to, over the next couple of years, I was the best, playing AAA, whatever. Football, the thing I'll say about football is I was really good at tackling, but other than that, I just didn't naturally have the ability to play, even though I played all through high school and whatever. But I was really good at tackling, and the weight room, you know, I guess from an early age, to go back to that early age, my dad had me, he would take me to the gym, he would make me run, yada, yada, yada. But I guess when I was 12, I had really like seen a bunch of fighting movies that just came out. I think it was Never Back Down just came out. So, I had never started boxing yet, but Never Back Down came out, and I thought I thought I was, that guy at the
Hell
time.
yeah, great
And I was
movie.
around. Yeah, I was running around, and I actually had my butt whooped twice within 24 hours of each other, twice by two different people. And after the second time, I came home, had a black eye from the first one. The second time, my nose was bloody. I got beat up by two different dudes, who I'm friends with now. One of them I'm like pretty close with. Uh, anyways, man, my dad didn't like that. I didn't like it. I deserved it. I ain't gonna cap. I was running my mouth and I got beat up. Uh, anyway, so my dad was like, "Nah, that's it. We're going to the boxing gym," and I was like, "Oh shit," like what? So that my first day in the boxing gym is where I really that mentality of like you got to be a grinder, is that like I kind of walk in there. And my first gym was like a real nasty, dirty, like you would think boxing gym. It was called Whatsoever Boxing Club, and man, the first day I'm dying. Like we hit a warm up run that's like 2.5 miles, and I mean I'd like played sports, but like trying to keep up with those dudes, oh man, it was horrible. Finishing all that training from that night, but like I was hooked, because like you mentioned before, it's something that not a lot of people do or can do. Oh, go. It's not a lot of it's something that not a lot of people want to do, and I've always been driven by that. Um, Things that I'm afraid of. So fighting people, even though I was running my mouth, I was always afraid of people. Uh, Afraid of bigger people. um afraid of pushing myself in like a physical aspect, because I'm definitely, even to this day, I'm definitely afraid of getting tired in any situation. So like I preach cardio like religiously. Just things that people are afraid of or that I'm afraid of. I seem to attack those things. And at the time, after I just gotten beat up, I got humbled. Uh, I don't want to say I was picked on, but I had a lot of friends. I did have a lot of friends, you know that. But like, there's always people that would pick on me, even if they were my friends. Just being bigger than me, beating me up all the time. And I always rolled with it because like it's all right. I'm not like mad about it. They weren't like bullying me, but they would pick on me because they were bigger than me, and I always hated that. And so just generally things that I'm afraid of, I have always attacked. And so there was guys in the gym that were better than me. So I trained real hard. And at one point in boxing, like when I was like 13 or 14, I was like 3-0. Thought I was hot shit again. And I went to the ringside world championships, and boy, did I get smoked bad. Uh, and it's the biggest amateur boxing tournament in the world. Like everybody knows about Golden Gloves and all that, but it's the biggest amateur boxing tournament in the world. And I got absolutely smoked on the first day. Um, I didn't like that. That somebody could beat me up, knowing there's somebody out there that could beat me up. I didn't like it. And so basically, my dad kind of had a falling out. Me and my dad kind of had a falling out with the guy who was coaching at that time. My dad took me to another gym, which was Authentic Boxing, whenever I was 14 years old, and that was a professional boxing gym. There's like maybe one amateur in there besides me too. On the first day, my coach Larry, rest in peace, he just passed away like last month. Woo. Anyways, my first day, he told my dad, let's let him spar. Let's see how bad he wants it, if he wants to be here or not. And so he put me in there, and the dude I sparred, I think his name was Salvatore. He was 16 years old. He dropped me 3 times in the first round, all body shots, leveled me, man. I kept getting back up, and then my coach was like, "All right, that's enough." And he told my dad, this is a story I heard a while later. He told my dad, "Don't even say nothing to him. Let's just see if he wants to come back tomorrow." And so when I got home the next day from school, I was my dad was sitting there, and I was like, "What are you doing? Are we going to go to the boxing gym?" He was like, "All right, let's go." And so from that time, I trained as hard as I possibly could. I'm talking like every day. I gave everything I could, and then some. My coach would bring the rest out of me. My dad would bring the rest out of me, and I'm talking every single day for 3 hours a day. It didn't matter if I had track, football, baseball, wrestling, whatever. It didn't matter. My dad would pick me up after those practices or after school and take me to the boxing gym for 3 hours, where I would train with grown men. I was 15 at this time, 14 at this time, uh, training with grown men. And just to give a little insight to our workout, our warm up was a 2.5 mile run, but at the end of every lap, so at the end of every quarter mile, we'd run to the top of the edge of hell, which is 10 flights of stairs of a building on the outside of a building. So we'd run one lap to the top, down, and then do 9 more laps plus the stairs. And that was just our warm up. Then we would do, 2.5 hours of ring drills, which is just burpees for 3 minutes, push ups for 3 minutes, mountain climbers for 3 minutes, or whatever. Or we'd spar, whatever, just your typical boxing training. Um, as a kid, man. And uh, a year later, I went back to the ringside world championships and I won in the open division. It was my 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th fight. I think maybe 11th through 14th, whatever. Uh, but in the open division, once you fight in the open division, you can fight anybody with 11 fights all the way to 1,000 fights if there was somebody out there. Like it's open. It's anybody can fight anybody, or you can fight in the novice division like I did my first year. But now that second year, I trained as hard as I possibly could, and I beat some killers just off of sheer will. That everybody that I fought, in that tournament, skill wise, they were better than me. I just wanted it more. And I knew what it meant to me to win that. And so, I mean, at 14 years old, to be able to hone your mind and focus your mind and have that tunnel vision, I mean, I knew what I wanted. I had a goal and I worked for it. The days I didn't want to work for it, shout out to my old man. If I ever get enough money, he deserves a house or a car or something for all the work that he put in, just to pay for me to get to the gym, just to take me to the gym. Cause it's not like I was doing on my own. I was 14.
Right.
My dad,
He was taking the effort and time out of his day after maybe being tired or stressed as a parent to make sure you showed up every day for sure.
exactly. He would work all day, man. And my dad has always done that manual labor. He would work all day, come get me, take me 30 minutes to the gym, drive 30 minutes back, and then make me. I love this about my old man is that he never ever made sure I didn't have like a healthy meal or something like that. My dad was always, feeding me vegetables, some type of lean meat. I mean, spaghetti was like the worst thing we would have. You know what I'm saying? Like my dad he was always breakfast, dude. Breakfast, my dad would. I used to get tired of it because my dad would, come on, my dad would make me an omelet every morning, an omelet, and I used to get so tired of it. Like, Dad, can we please have something else for breakfast? But we would have an omelet, fruit, a protein shake, like creatine half the time, and I'm like getting tired of it. But I look back now, and it's like that discipline that he instilled in me, just as in terms of food. Uh, but shout out to him because
Man,
that
shout out to Pops. Shout out to Pops. And how did you like I guess how did you redevelop that relationship being that he was gone for a little bit? You said that your parents were really struggling with substance abuse when you were younger, and I'm sure that was like there's a lot of pain, especially emotional pain that comes with that, especially as a young boy. So like when Pop started being around more and started really investing in your journey as a young man into sports and athletics, and really probably I assume from his perspective just teaching you how to be disciplined, teaching you how to be a dog, teaching you how to show up, like was it easy to like develop that relationship, or was it hard being that he was pushing you, or did you have like a weird relationship with him? What was that like when you were, number one, transitioning to him being back home, and then number two, like when he really started showing up for you and taking to all these events and pushing you and making sure you were eating right? Like was that something you look back on now and you appreciate but didn't appreciate then, or do you feel like you always were grateful from the beginning?
absolutely, yeah. I think you kind of said it perfectly. Back then, it's something you take for granted. You don't really think about it a lot. And I remember wishing that my parents were like other people's parents. The more like classic cookie cutter, whatever, suburbia parents. I've always been very respectful of my parents or other people's parents or my elders or whatever. That's just who I am. Kind of how I was raised too, but that's just like whenever I see people disrespecting their elders, no matter who it is, like it puts me off. So when my dad got out of prison, my mom had been clean for like a couple of years, but then it was like they used to switch. Like my dad would be going straight, my mom would be going off the wall, back and forth. But really, once my dad got out of prison when I was like almost 11 or whatever, he like was relatively straight. He's been straight, and I'm 27 now, and uh, so he got out, and my mom kind of flipped script again and went off the walls. And I'd been living with her, so I moved in with him. And my mom's like, I've been bigger than my mom since I was like 11, so like she kind of stopped being able to push me around. You know what I'm saying? She's a little girl, but my dad is like, this big macho hard ass. So you don't really get to argue with my dad, and especially at that time, my dad was like, he was like relatively in shape, just got out of prison, and my dad's really scary. Like looking back now, or looking at him now, I'm like, I'll whoop your ass. But back then, even till I was like 17, I was 18, 19, whatever. Like I was pretty afraid of my dad. Actually, I remember the first time I wasn't afraid of my dad was when I was like 16. Anyways, but at that time I was really afraid of my dad. So it was like his way or the highway. And I guess he going to prison, I was still real young. I didn't really like I knew he was gone in prison and whatnot, but like it didn't really affect me too much. Um my mom though, even her being on drugs later on in my life, like as a teenager, like I knew what was going on, but like I still just, I guess, as funny as it is, as a fighter, as a Marine vet, I'm a very unconfrontational person. Um, so like I avoid. I'm kind of like what we were talking about earlier with fight or flight. I avoid those confrontational moments, or like even vulnerable moments, like because I've hid within myself for so long, stuff on my own, dealt with stuff on my own. I avoid those vulnerable moments. So when my mom was on drugs, my dad would be telling me, or anybody who told me, I'd avoid it. Or if I knew something was wrong with my mom, I wouldn't say anything. If my mom was apologizing to me, I would just be like, it's okay, whatever. Like I would avoid the situation. And same with my dad. At that time, like my dad was really pushing me, and believe me, there was days I did not want to go to the gym. And later on, I actually quit boxing because I didn't know how to talk to him. Um, so I would kind of like, Dad, I don't feel good. I don't want to go to the gym. Thankfully, he'd be like, Nah, we're going to the fucking gym. And I'm very appreciative of that as a man now because I understand what it takes to win. But back then, it was just too much for a kid. Um, and so it really, by the time I was 16, it had caused an instability in our relationship. I resented him, thought he was trying to live his life through me. Because I was 16, man, I just wanted to like play football and like drink with my friends or whatever, hang out. Because I didn't get to like, he tried to like let me stay the night with my friends and stuff on the weekends, but it was just me and my dad. We didn't even have a washer and dryer, so we had to like every Saturday morning I would go work for this lady because I would needed some money and stuff, and he didn't have a lot, so I would go work on this lady's yard every Saturday. Then every Sunday we would go do our laundry together and stuff, which is cool. I'm looking back at that now, like I'm very appreciative and stuff, and like I almost feel bad about the times that I would go stay the night with my friends and my dad would have to do the laundry by himself. But at the time, man, I was just trying to live life, and so all that like really put an instability in our relationship, and we were unstable. We would kind of argue, but then what my dad said, that was final word. So eventually we had a falling out when my mom had just gotten clean, and that was my chicken exit. That was my easy way out. So I quit boxing. I ditched my dad. I like basically ran away from home. Didn't talk to my dad for a while because he wouldn't even let me take a break. I mean, he like as good as it was, my dad was like too much. So he wouldn't let me take a break from boxing and stuff like that. The most he would let me take is like 2 days off, and that wasn't enough. I needed a mental break, and so I quit boxing. I did after I won Golden Gloves. Uh, I ran away, basically lived with my mom. Didn't talk to him for a while until one day when we were in school at Truman, he came up there and was like, "Hey, I'm Hunter Vaughn's dad. Can you please bring him up here?" And I was like, "What?" So I went up there and he talked to me and he was like, "I'm still your dad. Like, you don't have to cut me out." And made me cry like a little girl. So I basically amended that, and he kind of was like, "All right, let's figure out what's the next thing we can do." And so that's whenever I decided I'm really over boxing at this point, but I love fighting. So I got into kickboxing at 16 years old, and I was living with my mom who had just gotten off drugs. My dad would still come pick me up at her house and take me to the gym. But things were rough there because me and my mom were actually living at somebody else's house, and it was me, my mom, this lady, and her son, who I became like best friends with because he was a grade older than me and stuff. But like, I mean, that's not. It was a little tiny house, man. It's rough. My mom's like trying to rebuild her life and stuff, and she has to this day. Like that was the last time. My mom's really rebuilt her life. My dad too, and I'm very proud of that. But just because of what I went through as a kid, I think that I really have become the person that I heed everybody's advice. I listen to everybody, my parents included. But when they give me advice, I'm like, okay, thank you for what you've told me. I appreciate that. I'm gonna figure it out on my own. Just because my parents were there, but they weren't there. You know what I'm saying? And I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own. So just growing up, I
And it's also tough. It's also tough because like as much as we might love our parents, or as much as our parents might have sacrificed for us and done everything that they could in their power at that moment in their life to, look out for us, make sure we was going down the right direction, quote unquote. Like if they're not living the lives we want to live, or if they haven't been where we're trying to go, it's kind of hard to like take advice from them. It's like we can hear. I like what you said because that's what I do. I'll listen to everybody. I'll listen to whatever advice you give. I'll listen to whatever tips you have. I will respect your opinion. I'll give you the time. I'll give you the ear time where I just sit there and listen to you, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna go take all that and put it into action because I may not believe anything you just said. I might give you the ear, but it may not be the path I'm gonna go down because you haven't been where I'm trying to go. So how am I supposed to trust you or what you have to say? I can love you, I can give you the time of day, but how am I gonna trust, you know, this is
yeah
what you should do? And it's like, bro, I'm trying to be the next Uriah Faber in the UFC. You've never done that. You've never been like, how are you going to tell me what I need to do? So, so I feel you there. So I kind of wanted to tap in there and interject, but I also want to I kind of want to transition out of that conversation. But before I do that, if you could, if your mom, which the funny thing is on Facebook, you'd be seeing so many different things. And I'm pretty sure I know your mom and dad's name, even though I don't know them. But anyway, so I was about to say their names by first name, but what I'm going to do is say, if your mom or dad listens to this podcast when it comes out or in a few years or whatever, and, they're not expecting whatever, they don't know what you're going to say throughout this podcast, right? But I'm going to ask you right now, like, if you could speak to them and just share any thoughts or share anything you're grateful for, or just share anything you appreciated or really love about them, like just speak a quick word to your mom and speak a quick word to your dad if they end up listening to this.
yeah. I think this is actually really good because I'm not a very like emotional or like heartfelt person. Actually in my relationship over the last 2 years, I've really been trying to like open up, but I think I was just hurt so bad as a kid that it's really hard for me to do. And anyways, so to my mom, I love you. I know that it's difficult to deal with me a lot of the time, and I feel like over the last even the last year, the last 2 years, three, really since ever I went to since I got out of the Marine Corps, I know that I've been drifting apart from you. Um, I'm just kind of on my own journey, and I'm trying to fix everything that I'm dealing with internally. Um, but just know that I do love you, and I think you do know that. But I really appreciate everything that you've done for me, despite what we're talking about, the past, because since you've been clean, everything that you've done for me has 100% saved me from where I could be. Dad, God, you're an asshole, but I do love you. And I know that, I mean, since I was like 10 years old, we've probably told each other we love each other 5 times, maybe. And I know you're proud of me, even though I'm pretty sure only twice in my life you've ever told me that. Um, but everything I do is literally to make you proud. So I hope you know that. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Hunter. I appreciate you doing that, man. And it's super tough, especially like you mentioned about yourself, like growing up where you're used to holding things in, dealing with things on your own, to be able to express your thoughts, your emotions externally. So true, real shit. Thank you for sharing that. This podcast is called Voices of Value for a reason. It's because we all have something impactful to say. We all have emotions, thoughts that we hold inside of us that sometimes we never get the chance to put out there. So whether it's knowledge, whether it's how we feel about our family, whether it's a piece of advice for our friends that listen, whatever it is, I'm appreciative of you taking that time out to share that. So appreciate you. So I want to dive into, your decision to go to the military. You're a fighter, you're training hard, you're developing the ability to be disciplined and challenge yourself to do hard things. It's coming to the end of the high school, coming to the end of your high school career. And I know for a fact that you left school early. So kind of touch on that, man. Touch on how you ended up leaving school early, and then next thing you know, like we were in the middle of the school, and then all of a sudden we see you in fucking San Diego or wherever you were training and going into the Marines. We're like, hold up, bro, ain't you supposed to be in school? So like, just touch on that part of your life and why you decided to enter the Marines.
So, man, all those movies when we were like real little, all the war movies, hero movies, whatever, any movie I watched, like even monster movies and like the SWAT guys and military guys come in, I was like, those guys are so badass. Those guys are so cool. So I think it was like really instilled in me at an early age. Like I knew that I wanted to be like the soldier, the hero, whatever. And I mean, by the time like high school comes around, you're a freshman, those Marines or Army guys or whatever are at your lunch. Man, I remember the Marines like coming and they were like, you can't do 10 pull ups, you can't do 20 pull ups. I was like, watch me. And there, you get a shirt or a lanyard if you do it. And I hit it and I got it. So I was one of those kids that used to chop it up with the recruiters here and there. And so I kind of knew that that's what I wanted to do. But I also like most people, I didn't really understand the difference between the Army and the Navy and the Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, whatever. Uh, until I watched a movie and it's kind of dumb. It's called Battle Los Angeles, about aliens and Marines, basically. But I watched that movie and like those Marines in the movie, like really like that movie really impacted me when I was like 15 or 16 or whatever. And I like that's when I knew like I really wanted to be a Marine, watching like moto videos and stuff, just learning what Marines were, yada, yada, yada. So probably about 15, 16, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew I wasn't going to like go to college play football or whatever. And I'm actually like really intelligent. Like I made good grades and stuff. That's how I was able to graduate early. Um, so I pretty much like decided like, nah, I don't want to go to college. I want to go serve my country. And that's not even what I said. I really wanted to be like a warrior. I wanted to go off to Iraq and kick indoors, and I won't even lie. Like I wanted to go slay some bodies. That's how it is. That's why most people at 17 want to join the military, specifically the Marines. Like most people that join the Marines want to go off and like fight wars because that's what the Marines are known for is being gung ho, kicking indoors, blowing people up. And that's what I wanted to do. I told them when I went in there, I went into this thing called the delayed entry program where you can sign up before you're eligible to go. And so I would go do PT twice a week at the recruiting station, um, where you do basic Marine Corps PT, pull ups, push ups, mountain climbers, burpees. Like they just work you out for like an hour and a half. And I was already in shape. So I was kickboxing at the time. So I was like, whatever, it's an extra workout, no problem. Um, so that was my goal. And I got a concussion my junior year and I missed like 70 plus days of school from football. So that set me back. And in order to graduate, my senior year, I had to take a year's worth of classes and put them in one semester so I could graduate early. Um, because by my junior year, I was on track. All I had to do was one class my senior year and then, like some electives or whatever. But so I basically had my senior year, my first semester, I had six classes that I had to do in my last 2 hours of the day. I went and did the computer lab thing and did like some online stuff. And that set me up to where once December hit, I could leave to go to boot camp while everybody else was doing their senior pranks, their prom, senior skip day, all those things that are looking back now, I wish or at the time, I wish I could have been there doing it. When I was in boot camp, I was absolutely like, man, I could be chilling at home, hanging out with some girls, getting drunk with my friends, whatever, even though it's bad. Underage drinking is bad. But sitting in boot camp, that sucks. They tell you, your first night there, because San Diego Airport is right next to the Marine Corps base. They tell you your first night there, you're gonna be hearing those planes go over and wish you were at home. And I swear to God, I did. I was thinking, what did I do? Oh, but it worked out okay, man. I graduated boot camp 2 days before my high school graduation, so I got to come home and I walked across the stage in my dress blues, and as corny as it is, I got a standing ovation. Which looking back now, I felt like a superstar, but I think about it now and I'm like, man, you're such a boot. You haven't done nothing yet. You don't even know what you got in store over the next 3 years and 9 months or whatever. And I mean, it worked out. The
So
the only
dive into that a little bit. First off, that's a funny story. I didn't know that you got to come back home and walk the stage. But one thing I want you to touch on real quick is, while being respectful, of course, if possible. But you were already disciplined. You were already locked in, and I don't want to assume that everybody that decided they wanted to go into the Marines was the exact same type of person. I'm sure there was some individuals who had a real shitstorm coming to them because they didn't have any discipline. They didn't really work out back home. They didn't really have to go through what you had to go through as a child. They might have had a tough childhood, but from a physical point of view, right? From working out, hard work, waking up early, going to bed late after long days of school, work, multiple practices. So like, how was there any adjustment there in terms of the people that you were put around once you like landed? Were you like, fuck, I hate these guys, and now I got to get to know them? Like, how did you like overcome that? Talk about the relationship building process during those few months of basic.
Okay, so you kind of get there and we all have this common goal. Let's all be Marines. Everybody wants to be the guide, which is like the leader of your platoon in boot camp. Everybody wants to like be the guy that makes the decisions. It's the best PT, but that's just not the case. Everybody thinks they're going to go in there, and you see those memes or whatever about guys, or you hear stories from guys like, yeah, I was going to go to the Marines, but then I realized I'd kick the drill instructor's ass. First of all, no, the fuck you wouldn't. um Maybe later on in your Marine Corps career, but not when you're fresh out of boot camp, man. Those dudes are fucking scary when you first get there, because they are. It's not. I'm not gonna hate on the Army or Navy or Air Force, but I'm just gonna say that their boot camp is a little softer than ours. I'm talking like these dudes. If you were laughing, they would be coming from 100 yards away, sprinting, and smack the shit out of you and start screaming, and you'd be doing burpees for until the cows come home, man. And that's how it is. If you do something wrong, you're doing mountain climbers, burpees, whatever, for hours. I got pink eye in boot camp because this drill instructor made me do push-ups, and then he kicked sand in my eye, and so I got pink eye in both my eyes. Um, Anyways, yeah, there's a lot of people who weren't built for that. There's people with problems with authority. Um, there's people who are out of shape, and there's people who really don't want to be there. They think they do, or they didn't have another choice, and those are the ones that it's really hard for. Um, Man, and it's just so boot camp is like to weave out the ones who really don't belong or don't want to be there. And trust me, they still slip through the cracks. They There's people that like try to get out of boot camp, and one thing the drill instructors would always say is it's faster to just graduate boot camp than it is to get kicked out. Because people who would like try to get kicked out or fail, they'd be stuck there for another 6 months, 9 months, trying to get all their paperwork done, this, that, and the other, while we're already been in the fleet for 6 months by this point. You know what I'm saying? So, uh, and then you have a other than honorable discharge or whatever, which is not negative, it's not positive, but it's not worth all the benefits that I have now. But I mean, it's hard, but as long as you do what you're told, like there's always people, like no matter if you're the best recruit ever, you're still gonna get fucked over by somebody else in your platoon, whatever. That's how it is. But it's really not that bad. I remember thinking like 2.5, 3 years into my enlistment that I missed boot camp. Like boot camp was really fun. Like 3 meals a day. You get to do all these cool obstacles. You get to shoot guns, every now and then. You get to like learn a lot of fun stuff, and it's hard, but like it's not the hardest thing that I did. It actually from boot camp, in the Marine Corps at least, from boot camp, it only gets harder until your last day. I swear to God, it gets harder and harder, man. And I mean, so
Do
yeah,
do you feel like you built the majority of your like friendships in the Marines and that true brotherhood? You know, I see you shout out some of your people from the Marines on Facebook here and there, and I can see the love in the posts and the endearment in the comment sections and
yeah,
how you guys really care about each other. And I know you've lost some brothers over the past few years as well. So, like when you think about the relationships that you were able to, you know, craft, build, and truly appreciate, were the majority of those built during boot camp or during those 4 years after?
both. So a lot of guys do build great relationships in boot camp. I did too, but the problem is that in boot camp, so there's grunts and there's pogues, and pogue just means personnel other than grunt. So you guys after boot camp, like I'll either go to grunt school and you'll go to your whatever other school that's not an infantry school, right? But like I have a friend who's from Kansas, who I met on the way to boot camp. In boot camp, we were tight. Uh, and still to this day we're tight. He comes and watches my fights, you know, and stuff. And I met up with him in Okinawa when I was deployed. He was stationed out there, and I met up with him. We used to kick it, go to the gym together, you know. So that was one instance of like boot camp buddy that I have that I'm still tight with. That's really the only one from my boot camp. But see, the problem was that when I went to infantry school, all the guys from my boot camp class were were in my class, but I got sick, and so I got dropped to another class because I was out for like 2 weeks. So they put me in another class, and all of those guys I went to the fleet with. So the fleet is like where you like really start to be a Marine and do your job and train and blah blah blah. And those are the dudes you live with for the next 3.5 years, or however long you're in, until they all get out or relocate or whatever. And so those guys are like my best friends in the world that I like. Well, I'm in a Snapchat group. We talk to each other every day. You know what I'm saying? From my platoon and the fleet. And um, I mean, man, you just meet people all over that you become friends with. My best friend in the whole world. Well, you know, I got a couple, and they're from here, but outside of my boys over here, my best friend in the whole world is a Marine. His name's Nathan Burns. He wasn't in my platoon. He wasn't even in my company. I just met him. We kind of were like we were chop it up every time we seen each other. But one day it was just like it clicked, and we started going to the gym together every day. Um, Started hanging out with each other every day, and at my lowest time, I developed a pretty bad drinking problem. Um, at my lowest, that I've ever been. Whether it be outside of the Marine Corps or inside, he's always there. He never judges me. He always listens. He's always been patient with me. Um, and so there was a time, I'll just kind of shout him out real quick. There was a time in the Marine Corps where I had said over the course of a year, you guys are overpaying me for for 7 different times. I told them. Finally, on the eighth time, they were like, "Oh, you owe $32,000," and I'm like, "Duh!" But then every time I went to tell them, they would be like, "No, your pay is fine." I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna keep spending this money because I lived in Hawaii. I was married at the time, and so I had to have an apartment, which I lived in a studio that was $2,000 a month. It was a studio. It was tiny. Like that's insane. I had to get a car
That's
because
the Hawaii lifestyle.
yeah, exactly, man. A gallon of milk's like $9. Anyways, so I had to buy groceries. I couldn't eat at the chow hall. I had to buy a car so I could get back to work, and I had to pay rent. I had bought my wife a car at the time, like, so I didn't have any money. Like I was trying to make it, but like as a E3 in the Marine Corps, like you're not making a lot of money, especially living in Hawaii, man. And so basically, they told me I owed $32,000 and I wasn't going to get a paycheck until I got out of the Marine Corps to pay it all off, right? So they moved me back into the barracks, and I had no money. So Nate, anytime we wanted to go do something, I'd be like, I don't have any money. He'd be like, ah, brother, come on, I got you. This dude would pay for our surfboards to rent for us to go surfing. He would pay for food if we wanted to go try this new like whatever we wanted to do, movies, food. You know, he's like my little boyfriend. He would pay for everything. It was great. And like I said, he's probably one of the best friends I've ever had. We moved to Sacramento together. I moved back. He eventually he moved back to Maine, and I literally talk to that dude every day. He's my best friend in the whole world, and like those relationships, you cannot absolutely cannot find a better source of relationships than the military. Um, some guys might not see it the same way as me, but like I grew up not very close to my family, and so I really built a family in the Marine Corps and I really relied on those guys a lot, and I still like those relationships you don't get back, and it's really hard. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I was already going through some alcohol problems. I guess to revert back, like I thought if I'd never smoked weed, I still never have, or done any drugs, and so I always thought it would be okay to drink. Um, that would be my thing, you know. Even in high school, man, like when I would get drunk and go to parties, or whatever. I would always be the guy fighting, and I'm not like an aggressive person. I can fight, but whenever I would drink, I would be aggressive. And then going to the Marine Corps, all you do in the Marines is lift weights, work, and drink. I mean, that's just how it is. We would beer bong from the third deck of our barracks. You know what I'm saying? Like whiskey. Like I'd be beer bonging Jameson through a garden hose. Like, and at that time, I didn't understand that I was an alcoholic type of person. Um, so it got really bad, and I quit for 2 years. At one point, I've done it twice, but at at one point I quit for 2 years. And Nate really helped me get through that and was like really like a rock for me because he actually quit drinking too. He wasn't an alcoholic, but he made like one bad decision, like a normal person. He made one bad decision one time when he was drunk and was like, I don't need to be around alcohol for a while, you know, like a normal person. And I always struggled with that. Like, why can't I be like that? And instead, on the flip side, I'm over here like I still want to drink, blah, 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 blah. But he really helped me get through that. But, you know, then I got out of the Marine Corps in 2018 and my family, so to speak, was taken away from me because you spend every single day with these guys, right? You live with them. I had 3 roommates in a tiny ass barracks room. Like I had 3 roommates, 40 other dudes in my platoon, and I spent every day with these guys. You know, sometimes we showered together, we slept together, we would party together, we would fight each other, we would lift weights, we would do everything together. And then one day it's literally taken away from you. You know, not necessarily, but like I got out of the Marine Corps, flew home, thought everything was gonna be cool. It's gonna be lit. I'm on my way home, like, and then after like a couple of weeks, it hits like you miss these dudes, you know, and it really like I have separation anxiety, and I didn't know it at the time, but it really messed me up. And so I fell back into drinking and bad. A month being out of the Marine Corps, I got my first DUI. Ironically, that same day, one of my good friends was killed from the Marine Corps. So that fucked me up even worse. Um, and that didn't help. That wasn't a wake up call. I kept drinking. And like 6 months later, I got another DUI. And at that point, I had a kid on the way. My daughter, I had her on the way. So like, I was just like, what am I doing? Like, so I quit drinking again. For about like almost 2 years again. And, you know, like it was when I don't drink alcohol, like it's the best thing. Like things in my life really progress forward. And I didn't understand, like, for a long time, it took me, like, even to this day, like, it's really been a struggle to deal with my mental health because, like, I'm not an alcoholic. Like, I drink every day. There have been times when I have, but, like, I don't want to drink every day. I'm not a big drinker like that. But whenever I do drink, I get really aggressive, violent, and I hurt really bad. And it's like I want everybody else around me to feel the pain that I have inside. Because I never project that. I'm more of a bottle it up person. And I think as a child, I bottled it all up and kind of forgot about it. So whenever I would black out, I would project that to everybody else. One of my great friends, his mom died. Another one of my friends, his dad killed himself. to both of these guys who I'm absolutely like very close with, I have said at times when I was, drunk and angry, that's why your mom or dad deserves to die, blah blah blah. Things that I would never say, um, because I just want everybody else to be able to feel how I feel inside, and it's like I'm a huge advocate for like men's mental health because like currently I don't feel like that. You know what I'm saying? It's just whenever it was really hard for me to accept that alcohol was such a problem in my life. Except like the signs are right there in front of me. The only time anything bad has ever happened to me is when I'm drunk, and like it's the only time my life goes backwards is whenever I've been drinking or whatever, whether that be two DUIs. One time, funny story. One time I got arrested when I was in the Marine Corps. I just got meritoriously promoted. Me and my friends all went to the beach, got hammered. We were staying at a hotel downtown. I got so drunk that I started a fight in the hotel, ran to our room when security was coming, jumped off the 19th story balcony of a hotel down to the 18th like I'm Jet Li. Swear to God, this is a true story. Jumped down a balcony, knocked on the door. This little Japanese family was in there, and I was like, "Hello, can you let me in, please? Like, I won't hurt you." And they were like freaking out, like, "Ah, ah, ah." And so then I see security coming in through their door. I hop back up on the balcony, jump back up to the 19th, and climb back up where I finally got arrested. Like those are the things I do whenever I drink, and I could have died, man. But it took me a really long time, even still, like as recent as like 6 months ago, like trying to drink again because like it doesn't happen like that every time, you know. There's a lot of times where I'm cool and I'll have a good time or whatever. It's just really hard because alcohol is everywhere in the world, and all your friends drink, all your family, whatever. Usually it's all over the world advertised, and you're like, I don't do drugs, I don't do anything, horrifically bad, even though alcohol is one of the worst there is, But you see it and you're like, man, why can't I be like that? Like it sucks. Like all my friends get to go out and have like a good time. They won't even invite me over for a drink because they know how I get, and it sucks. And it's been really hard for me to deal with for a long time. But I think I finally accepted it and just to focus more on my mental health and trying to heal myself internally in
And how
terms of
are
like
you how are you doing that? So, I've heard you say a few times, you've learned to accept, and now just mentioning right there, you're really trying to focus on your mental health and healing some of your, past trauma. So how are you going about doing that? Is that from just constant conversations with yourself? Is that through prayers? Is that through church? Is that through a therapist? Is that through conversations with somebody you trust? Like, what avenues, I guess, is Hunter taking, and maybe you recommend to other people struggling? I think one thing you definitely know is your story in regards to post marine life, post military life is very common with people in the military, unfortunately. And you explained it really well, like that family just constantly being around this family and this tight knit crew. You guys doing everything together, and they talk to each other about everything. It's just a really strong bond you build with people over a short amount of time, and then all of a sudden it's essentially stripped from you. It's not that easy to communicate. Sure, we have FaceTime, sure, we have TikTok and Facebook, but like that's not the same as being every fucking 18 hours, 19 hours a day right next to each other. So you explain that really well, and kind of helps people understand why there's so much pain and mental health struggles for a lot of people getting out of the military. And you've shared some of the stories of what's gone on in your life so that people can relate there. But now to the healing aspect of it, what are you doing and how are you approaching that?
I've tried a lot of things. And I'm like really big on this, and I kind of want to touch on my girlfriend a little bit, because she's like a big aspect in this. So Ryan, she lost both of her parents a couple of years ago. Absolutely do not understand what she's going through. I'm always trying to be there for her, whatever, but I could never understand her pain. And I guess with her, I was like I would do to anybody, or maybe I have talked to other people in the same way, but I don't have the answer for anybody. Because everybody's different, man. We all have our own problems. stuff we go through, and we all have our own things that trigger us or our own things that help us get better. Um, so like I will bring up suggestions to her, like therapy has worked for her in the past, but like it's not so much now because she's becoming sort of similar to me where she just doesn't jive with therapists, or she's kind of like she doesn't think she's smarter than therapists, but it's like she knows pretty much everything they're gonna say, so she just kind of put off by it. Um, so like for me, my own personal thing, for a while I went to the VA. I went to the VA for like a year and a half, to substance abuse classes, to mental health help, anger management. I'm not even an angry person. I just went there just cause. Identifying triggers, like all kinds of classes I went to. And so for me, other stuff that helped, like it's just kind of a lifelong road you have to take, I think. And you have to, the first thing is you have to accept. I accept that, I can't drink, because if I do, like what happens if I flip out one day, I hurt somebody. Something that you can't take back. If I hurt somebody, that I would never hurt somebody. Like I hate, I would never be mean to somebody who's sober. I would never be mean to somebody. I would never hurt somebody's feelings. I would never physically hurt somebody unless it's for sport. Like even then, like sometimes you feel bad after you whoop somebody's ass too bad. Like I've been in that situation where I almost kind of feel bad, but I would never hurt somebody physically or emotionally. But what happens if I drink and I do? You know, um, if I say something to somebody that I didn't mean, I don't want to feel that guilt again. What happens if I physically hurt somebody, something that I can't take back? Not even an adult. What if I hurt a little kid? I have my own daughter. If somebody hurt my kid, then I would get aggressive and I would want to kill them. But I've also had that same conversation, or not the same, but I've had a conversation with somebody one time where he was talking about a man who, a pedophile, I think. And he was like, nah, we should kill him, hang them all, whatever, you know? And I said, okay, if he's guilty, what about the man who hurt him? Are you going to kill that guy? What if that guy's dead? That guy, maybe this guy, like there's like 1% of the people in the world who are truly evil, who are just born evil. That's how it is. But what about the guys who you're talking about who are pedophiles or murderers? How does us hurting or killing them prevent anything? Because those guys were hurt in the past. Women, those guys and girls were hurt in the past. And those guys before them were hurt in the past by somebody else. And so, even as like an MMA fighter, a veteran who, you know, I just am so against violence. Like, I don't even own a gun. And most veterans is like, I got 10 guns, like blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't even own a gun. Like, I'm just not a very violent person. I don't believe in violence like that because it doesn't get anything. If you hurt somebody, they're going to hurt somebody else. It's just like a butterfly effect. And so my solution in that conversation was, yeah, that guy committed a crime, a horrible crime. Absolutely. If somebody hurt my daughter, I would want to kill them as well. I don't blame anybody for thinking that. But my solution is, or not even a solution, I mean, but if that guy's hurt and commits a crime, that guy still needs help. Just because somebody takes a life doesn't give somebody else the right to take that person's life. And um I don't know, the person I was talking to at the time, he kind of stopped and he was like, man, that's a hell of a way to think about it. Nobody thinks about it like that, generally. And I mean, that's just how it is for me. Back to the mental health thing, like we all need, everybody needs some type of mental health help. I'm not sure what it is because it's different for everybody. Me personally, the biggest thing that helps is me spending time with my friends. Like I have my family and I love my family, but like I really rely on all of my friends as a family to like boost me up emotionally and like build my confidence and help keep me stable. Because I choose to surround myself with people who like not only support me, but will like give me that you're fucking up tone. My friends will tell me straight up, like, they're even if they're younger than me. I have a friend that's like 23. He's 4 years younger than me, and he's way ahead in life than me in a certain like aspect. And like he talks to me like he's my dad, and I'll even ask him advice, stuff like that. Like that's what really helps me is like spending quality time with friends. Going to the gym is very beneficial for me. Um, just I think at one point it was like expressing the things that have happened to me in my life. The things I've seen in whatever moment, just expressing it because like I held it in for so long. So like I'm not saying therapy, but like I was at the VA in a group setting where we were all veterans. Like it was like not like therapy. We were all just there to talk. Um, and I told some stuff that happened when I was a kid, like stuff that didn't even have to do with the military, but like just being able to get it out has really taken a load off my chest and shoulders. Um, and then like at an AA meeting, I'm not really an AA goer, but like I've gone a couple times and I went to a meeting like maybe 7 months ago or so, 6 months ago, whatever, and just being able to talk about how I feel, like as long as you talk about it, like to whoever, most of the time for me, it's talking to my girl, talking to my friends, my mom, whatever. Talking to somebody, I think, is the biggest thing for me that's helped.
I
Um,
love that. I think, for ladies and gentlemen, who are listening right now, what I kind of heard there is a few things. Number one, I think what comes to mind is this idea of wellness being a spectrum. So being well human, a human that is, feeling well. I mean, simply put, wellness is a multifaceted situation. So you have social wellness, you have occupational wellness, you have mental wellness, you have physical wellness. So what Hunter just touched on there was mental wellness from the perspective of, making sure you acknowledge, accept, and, uh, let out what's going on and what you're feeling and what you're struggling with, and just saying it or just having a conversation with somebody can be really helpful. Number two, he mentioned physical wellness, so taking time to go to the gym, or go work out and doing things that are hard and physically challenge the body. I mean, I'm sure everyone kind of already knows by now the scientific research behind how that can just help with mental health and just make you feel good. And then he also touched on um, community. So, hanging out with his friends really makes him feel better, but also community are those groups that he went to at the VA. Being able to going to an AA meeting, that's a community. There's a community that's gathering around a specific topic, issue, challenge to be able to discuss what's going on and be able to hear what somebody else is going through can also help you navigate that same challenge, and they might be 40 years ahead of you. So if anybody out there is struggling with mental health or mental wellness, or just feeling good, feeling like they want to be here, feeling excited for each day, kind of re-listen to the past 10, 12 minutes. And I think Hunter shared some different things that can be helpful in there. So I do want to, in the name of time, make sure that we transition into talking a little bit about your fighting career and what's next for you there. So I know you're passionate about fighting. I know you've been hustling and training in regards to MMA. You've had quite a few fights over the past few years. I know that's a tough game to be in. Sometimes people pull out of fights, sometimes things fall through, especially, where you're at right now. I know you were supposed to have a fight and that fell through. I'm sure I've seen that happen a few times. So I'm sure that's tough mentally, like training for a fight, getting excited, getting ready, and then it not happening. So just talk about maybe what's up next for Hunter when it comes to MMA, and then let's talk about what are you excited about when it comes to the future of MMA, and you can speak to UFC or Bellator or whatever, just in general, what you're excited about for the future of MMA and how things are going on right now in the industry with all these celebrity fights as well, like just the fight game from a pop culture perspective. Share your thoughts, and then also your career. What's next for you?
okay. Last thing, back to mental health.
Please do.
Uh, the thing that I really wanted to touch on is I was just having this conversation with my girlfriend. Um, Having goals, achieving goals, failing at goals, whatever. Having a goal and slash hobby, maybe a hobby that you can achieve some goals in. Like she's not really a big gym person. She's in shape, she's fit, she's got a nice body. But she doesn't really have like any hobbies. And so we were talking about my own depression that like I've been dealing with this as recent as the last couple weeks. Um and resetting myself, etc. So I think that for people dealing with depression, we often get caught, like I live life balls to the wall, but a lot of people get caught in this like work, eat, sleep routine, right? And not a lot of people have hobbies, even video games. Like I get it, I play video games all the time, but that's not the same. I mean, like you really need to have something attainable that you can achieve to feel better about yourself, because getting caught in that routine is negative on your mind, because you become lackadaisical, laxed in your mind. Like um you just feel like you're on repeat and nothing is changing, nothing is happening. You might be stacking your bread. That's okay. Like that, maybe that's your goal, stack some bread, right? But what are you gonna do with it, right? Um, I just think that it's super important, because like for the last like 6 months or so, I've just been either not working because I didn't have a job. I was trying to find a new job, and because I own a business, but during the winter, I can't do my business. I own an outdoor, more of a construction business. Anyways, so like I've been depressed because I couldn't train because I didn't have a job, and I once I got my job, been able to start training, and I realized that I need something to work towards, right? And I was trying to explain that to her, like maybe if somebody has like a goal, and like I know this is common knowledge, right? But like I really felt it now. Once I have a goal and I'm achieving goals and I'm getting better, I'm taking steps towards the next goal. Like I feel so much better. And anyways, so that brings me into fighting. Yeah, I've had 21 boxing matches, two kickboxing matches, and I've now had 9 MMA fights. My last one was in May of last year, which is my longest layoff so far since I've started. I needed it because back to mental health. I got to the point. So it was my sixth fight in about a year and 4 months, which is a lot. That's a lot of fighting. I was on a 4 fight win streak. And then I was whooping this dude's butt, and I got caught with a shot. It was clean. I'm not even gonna say it was lucky because it was nasty. Like he kicked me, I blocked it, but he was like 6'3" and I'm 5'10". He kicked me, I blocked it, and then as I'm looking up, his leg's still in there. He's bringing down a hand. Boom, knocked me out. First time I ever been knocked out in 30 fights. First time I've ever been knocked out ever. Like, so that was like very humbling, demoralizing. I felt like shit. I had a shitty weight cut. Like it was an out of town fight. I was in Florida. It was a huge fight. I wanted it, but like my weight cut went bad. So when you have, I always say I got knocked out, but my wrestling coach was like, "No, you were just dehydrated from your weight cut," which is possible, but that's part of the game. It's all steps that piece together into a puzzle, right? So I got knocked out. And the funny thing about it though is whenever it was time to fight, while we were warming up, I didn't even want to be there. I wasn't, my head wasn't in the game, and this is a game, a dangerous game, man. You can't be half in, you know what I'm saying? Uh so I went out there and fight, and I was winning, I was whooping the ass, but then I got knocked out. And so I realized like I didn't want to be there. What's going on here? Whatever. Like I'll just get back in the gym. I thought getting back in the gym, training, getting another dub, like I'll get my mind right. Get back in the gym, yeah, after a loss, like you're super motivated. So I trained my ass off. Um, and I fought 4 months later, and I got a super dominating victory. Won all 3 rounds, big time. One was even, most of the time they're 10-9. One of them was even a 10-8, which means you actually have a super dominating round. Basically, I mauled the guy for 3 rounds. Hats off to him, super tough dude. I couldn't get the finish, but even that day, like all the way leading up training, like I was super motivated. And then the closer we got, like I realized again, I didn't want to be in the gym. I was like, I need a break. Like I don't want to be here. The day up to fight, I was here telling Ryan, I was like, man, I do not want to do this. Like a couple weeks before, I told my wrestling coach, who's one of my good friends, I was like, I'm not excited like anymore. I don't want to do this. Like I don't even care. And her, they both were like, let's just get through this. Let's get this dub. We can take a break. And so that was more motivation for me. I was like, I don't want to do this, but all I have to do is want it for 9 minutes or whatever. As long as the fight goes, that's all I have to do. Once they lock the door and ring the bell, that's the only motivation I need right there. Just go as hard as I can until it's done, and then I can take a break. And that worked out well because I won. And so I haven't fought since then. I've been training, but I did take like a long break, and that's what I needed when I was a kid when I quit boxing. Was I needed a break. And I'm not talking like a week or 2 weeks even. Sometimes that's enough, but like you gotta, if you're gonna be a fighter or if you're gonna pursue something, first of all, I'm a firm believer if you're gonna do it, you better overdo it. If you're gonna pursue something, you better really pursue it. Like I'm all 100%. If you're gonna do it, do it. Balls to the wall. And so you're gonna get burnt out sometimes. When you start to lose that mental aspect, you need to find it again. So I took 6 months off. Like I was training kind of like once or twice, whatever. Took a couple weeks off. I'd show up once, take another couple weeks off. But I realized now, after I came back to the gym, like pretty committed or as committed as I can be, uh, I have that itch again. Like I want to fight again. I'm sitting at home like shadow boxing and whatnot. Like I got the itch to fight again, and like I found my love for it again. And that's what really matters is that you have that love for the game. And sometimes that happens and I was able to take a step back and now I'm back in it, ready to go again, ready for round two. I went too hard for a little bit. Now I take that break and now I'm back. So for me, what's next? I have a combat jujitsu match, which is basically pro jujitsu. So I will not be an amateur. It'll be my first pro jiu-jitsu match where I get paid like a purse to compete, blah blah blah. It's in April at Harrah's Casino, I believe, in Kansas City, and I'm pretty excited for it. It's like a big deal. It's just like any other fight. I'm on a big stage. There's a big crowd. Uh, I'm super excited. I've never done one. I've competed in jiu-jitsu before, but never like in a jiu-jitsu fight, as they call it. I always think that's funny because I'm a real fighter and we're just doing grappling, but whatever. So it's my first jiu-jitsu show. I'm super excited about it because even though I'm mostly a striker when I fight, I'm like all about the grappling. I love jiu-jitsu. And my biggest goal, even more than like winning a UFC belt, is to get my black belt in jiu-jitsu. There's only been around 2,000 people in the world that have ever gotten their black belt in jiu-jitsu. So I mean, I know the number is less for like UFC stardom, but I don't know, just like the reputation or the sometimes the notoriety that comes with having a black.
Yeah. And sense of accomplishment, doing something that not so many people have done, just tells you that shit was hard as fuck and you still did it.
I mean, it takes like the average person gets their black belt in jiu-jitsu after about 12 years. That's like a serious like amount of dedication. I think it took my coach 14 years, 15 maybe. The fastest is ever has been Orlando Sanchez and BJ Penn. They got it in like 4 years and a couple months. But I mean, it really can be like your coach is handing you belts, or like say you were a D1 national champion in wrestling. I mean, you're going to get fed your blue or purple belt pretty quick because you already know the basics type of stuff. But for me, I imagine it'll be my 10th to 12th year by the time I get my black belt. I'm in no rush. I mean, sometimes I'd like to think I'm a little bit more ahead of where I am, but sometimes you get humbled. Sometimes you don't, whatever. But yeah, so I have a jiu-jitsu match coming up in April. I'm very excited about it, like more excited than I have been for my last couple of fights like I was talking about. After that, I'm looking at fighting in Westport, Kansas City. My coach, we opened a new gym in Westport, and so he's on the Westport board down there. And in the summertime, about June, July, we're we're looking at throwing our own show, which will be our first ever. And it'll be an outside show in Westport. You know that once a month they have this like art fair or whatever where they shut down the whole block and people can walk through or whatever. We're planning on setting up our cage, charging people uh, a lower ticket. I'm not going to call the price out, but a lower dollar amount to get in, and it's low enough. Like typically, the cheapest ticket to come watch me fight is about $45, which is tax, you know. And I get it; it's a venue; they got to pay their prices and whatnot. But our show is going to be significantly cheaper, and I'm very excited about that for all my brothers and sisters and family that can't come because you know I understand that it's expensive to come watch me fight. Uh, you know, I'm very excited about that because my coach is making moves. My gym, it's going to be a show where we can put our whole gym on, not just two, three, four, five guys. You know, we can have 15 of our dudes on the card. Like, it's a super exciting thing for me. Um, and over the next year, two, let's say, I guess I won a fight last year, but I'm looking to win my next 4 or 5 fights. Um, You know, I don't like to get too ahead of myself. I like to take it one fight at a time, but I know how good I am. Um, I know the drive I have. I'm just right now. I'm kind of getting my ducks in a row so I can make that beeline to where I want to be. Uh, I'll be realistic because that's who I am. I don't think that I will ever be champion. I'm not saying it's not obtainable. Um, attainable. That's just who I am as a person. I'm a realist. I think of myself more in the future as being a solid journeyman like Donald Cowboy Cerrone, um, Jim Miller. You know, I'm not afraid to fight anybody within reason, and so I take fights. Sometimes I shouldn't. 2 days notice, whatever. It don't matter. Like whoever wants it can get these hands. It don't matter. Um, and so I think that realistically, like I could be in Bellator or the UFC, either or. Hopefully the UFC, that's what I prefer. But Bellator pays more as a entry level fighter, so I'll take it. And Bellator is still, I mean, that's up there, you know.
Top of the line. Yeah, people are still aware of it. I
Yeah.
love that. And I think motherfuckers need to, real quick side note, y'all motherfuckers better go out there and pay for these $45 fights because it ain't finna get no cheaper for Bellator or UFC. So if anybody is complaining, if they're not showing up because they just ain't have time or didn't make it or don't have the money that time, cool. But if you really want to see him fight and you keep talking about, I really want to see you fight, bro, but these tickets are taxed. Stop capping. You don't really want to see him fight. It's $45, my guy. You spending that in one night out on at Westport. You spend that in one lunch out with your girlfriend at fucking Applebee's. Like my boy, you can pay for the fight. So I'm just saying that to say that I know you was trying to be humble and nice and be like, yeah, I know it's tax. That shit ain't tax. Y'all better pay now before you can't pay later. So, anyways, just had to say that real quick.
I'm not gonna call anybody out, but you know, I just I've been fighting since we were kids, man. You know that, and this dude that we also grew up with, he went to Crispin. He just had his first fight last night, and he took it on short notice, you know. But I've seen all these people that have been talking on my statuses or whatever on all my social media all these years, talking about I want to come see you fight, when, blah blah blah. And then this dude posts one post, he's about to have his first fight, and everybody's like, "Oh, I'm gonna come out." And then they all like a lot of them went, and I'm like, "Y'all been like,
Y'all
no
been
offense,
calling for 6 years.
bro, no offense to him. It's nothing to do with him, but I'm like." This is this dude's first fight. Like I'm in the game. I've been in the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, and again, no disrespect to him, but his level of competition is not where I'm at. Like, but you want to go see this dude and don't want to see me, and I'm like, man, it just kind of, I was salty about it a little bit, but it's all right. That's how it goes, man.
That's how it
It's
goes in that game, point blank period. Anytime you're in something spectator sport or you own a business or anything in that realm where you're doing something off the muscle and it requires people to show up and invest in you monetarily and with their time, you're not gonna see a lot of people show up and they're gonna be wishy-washy. And that's like we're all human, so we're all gonna get affected a little bit or be a little salty. So I understand. But at the end of the day, Just believe motherfuckers when you see them. That's what I tell. That's what I tell everybody. I'm gonna believe it when I see it. You keep talking about you want to buy my t-shirts or you want to do personal training with me. I'm gonna believe it when I see it. I'm not gonna entertain no 77 messenger messages back and forth with you. If you wanna rock with me, rock with me. If you don't, I'm just gonna stop messing with you after the third message back. Like I'm not here to play games, and it's kind of the same thing with you, my boy. It's like these motherfuckers are gonna talk in your comment section, and you can oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. But don't believe that love until you see it in real life. Um,
They're running anyways. I'm gonna be out there training.
Hell
So
yeah, you're gonna be showing up anyway, so regardless, it don't matter. But let me jump to this. Just this. I know there's so many things we want to talk about, but just we gotta. I try to keep my episodes beneath 90, just so people can they actually commit to listening as hard once it past that hour mark. So I want to make sure we keep the listeners here till the very end. And with that being said, I do want to ask you one final question that I do ask everybody. And this question is, it is your last day on earth. It is your last day on earth. You've lived a life to the fullest. You've done everything you wanted to do. You fought in the UFC and Bellator. You don't want as many fights as you wanted to win. You've taken care of your children. You've loved your wife and lady, my bad. But your lady and taken care of her and done everything you wanted to do. It's your last day on earth, and your great great grandkids are sitting at your feet, and they ask you, great great grandpa Hunter, what is one piece of advice on how to live a good life? What are you going to tell them?
hmm, love. I man, one, I'd say kind of tied. I'd say do your best. It don't matter what you do, just as long it does. I don't care what you do. It doesn't matter what you do. Whatever it is that you want to do it as hard as you can. Do the best you can do. Because nobody, if there's something you want to do, nobody can take it away from you if you have done absolutely the most that you could do. If you've given everything you have, what's anyone gonna say? If I go out there and fight and somebody says I suck, but I know I just gave 120%, it's not a loss. They're, like that guy was just better than me, you know. Anything you do, it don't matter as long as you give 110%, 120%, as much as you can. That's all. Nobody can take anything away from you. And recently, the older I get, now that I have a kid, the relationship, the healthy relationship that I'm in now, um, love your family, your friends, love everybody. Uh, this is the first thought that come to my mind, but the other one was probably better advice, but um, maybe not. Just love, man, love everybody, because there's no room in this world for hate. There's no room in anybody's life for hate. So I've been down that dark road of being angry and hating, hateful, prideful, but the feeling that I have when somebody shows me affection, or whenever I show somebody affection or do something out of love for somebody, that feeling is unlike any other feeling you'll ever have. I mean, that's what it is, man. It's all love for you, for me, for them. It's just love. Love
Hell
everybody.
yeah. Hell yeah. And on the topic of love, bro, I love you genuinely. You've always been a respectful, honest, straightforward, transparent, empathetic individual ever since I've known you. Like we've been able to have more deeper talks or really connect after high school or post military when you came back and I came back here as well. And that's been nice. But even from the very first memories I have of just, casually chopping it up in the hallways at Truman or randomly seeing you at a lunch table or randomly seeing you out and about at a kickback or something, you've always been kind, loving, respectful, and genuinely like compassionate towards other humans around you. So, everything you were saying earlier about, really being a loving person and not aggressive is true, ladies and gentlemen. Not that I needed to validate that, but that's been my experience as well. So, man, I love you. I appreciate all the energy and conversation you gave us today. I think this is a great opportunity for some of your friends, but also some of the fighters you fought that might be interested in your story. Some of your family members, some of your fans of your fighting and just of your journey. are gonna appreciate and be able to like listen and really tap into a little bit deeper side of Hunter and a little bit into some of the stories they may not know, specifically jumping off ledges and hotels. But nah, man, I really appreciate this. Anything else you want to leave the people with before we hop off here today, and make sure you plug them with where they can follow you and how they can support you in your fighting career moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, hey, just to go back to it, everybody love everybody, be nice to everybody. You don't know what anybody's going through. Um, and there's absolutely no reason to be mean to somebody, to put somebody down. I understand people piss you off or whatever, or are mean to you, whatever. It don't matter. Just be nice to everybody. And if you want to follow my journey, the_shark 24 is my Instagram. That's really the best one. Um, I've kind of fallen out of love with promoting myself. Like you said, if they want to, they'll figure it out, you know. So uh but yeah, that's my Instagram, and with that said, y'all have a good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tapping into another episode of the Voices of Value podcast. Make sure you leave 5-star review, as that is the only way we can grow. Thank you, Hunter. Thank you, audience. That's the episode.